Good evening, everyone, and welcome
Hi.
to Delight in Fright. I'm Kat, and our lovely Luna is above me, and we have our special guest, Robbie Dorman, with us today. He is the author of his newest novel, is Dead End. He also has Conquest, Truth, Underneath, which is the what's behind me here, The Split Circle, War on Halloween, Splatterfest, Regrowth, Death Battle, What Dwells Beneath the Waves, Burial, Killer Hockey Mascot, The Other, and War on Humanity. Did I cover them all there,
That's
Robbie?
yeah, that's all of them. It's a lot.
Yes. That you have quite the myriad of work. How early did you start writing? How old were you?
Oh gosh, I don't. I probably before I really remember. I mean, I was writing when I was a little kid. I that's what I tell people. I always like what people ask me at cons. They go, "When did you start?" I'm like, "Well, since I could write, I've been writing. Right, as soon as I knew how to." But I published my first book in 2019. I think there's like two answers to that question. Is like, I've been writing as long as I can remember, but I kind of started taking it seriously in 2019.
That's great. Is that the first time you got something published? Was in 2019?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was pursuing traditional publishing in the couple years before that, sort of, kinda, and I got very frustrated with it and decided to self-publish myself in 2019. But it's no, I never had anything other like I just jumped straight into. A lot of people will. Other authors they'll submit short stories to anthologies or to magazines, things like that. But I love writing novels, so I just kind of jumped into the deep end.
That's super awesome. Can we start off with Burial?
Sure. Yeah, that's fine with me.
I love this book. I gotta admit, this is probably one of the funnest books that I'm starting to read. I'm kind of towards the I don't know towards like the middle, so no spoilers, guys,
No
and
spoils.
no spoilers. But it's been good so far.
I'm glad to
So
hear.
yeah, yeah. What kind of inspired you to write like a Western post-apocalyptic thing? Did you
Uh,
watch something or?
I don't. That's a Burial is my little love child. You're not supposed to write when you. This is all how to the making the sausages inside baseball kind of talk. But when you are a self-published author, you're supposed to stay on brand, right? You establish an identity. And I had, Burial, I was like my ninth or 10th book, but I had written a horror up until that point. Lots of different kinds of horror, but all horror books. And that's what people were starting to know me as the horror author. And like that's how you build that, you get more readers. They know they can rely on you for this specific thing. And then I got this idea. I honestly don't really remember all the details about Burial. I think it was I I don't know. I love westerns. Like that's the thing. I like all kinds of stuff. I don't just like horror. I love horror, obviously, but I also love westerns. I love romance. I love all kinds of stuff. When I'm in a certain mood, I want different things. And a lot of times, I don't know, there is a lot of or can be a lot of crossover between westerns and horror. They're both, grim types of stories a lot of the time, especially westerns like of the 90s, things like Unforgiven. Even Stephen King with the Dark Tower series, he wrote westerns too. It's the same call to that kind of story. Burial was, I don't know. I think I like a lot of books, and people ask me about this. Like, how do you get ideas for a book? And like sometimes it is a singular vision. Like you get a singular, I want to write this story, this idea. This is what the story is. Other times it comes together in pieces. It's a puzzle, and you get a part of the idea. Sometimes it's just a snapshot of the character. You know exactly who they are, and you're like, well, what? where do they belong? What kind of story am I telling with this character? What would best suit this character? Other times it's, oh, I have this setting. I picture this in my mind. I think Burial actually started with this fascination I have with nuclear waste dumps, which are incredibly fascinating to me because you have to, like, and this is what kind of drew me in, is there's a lot of research done by scientists, and not just, physicists or nuclear scientists. It's like people who do like signs and language, because this waste is going to outlive us. We will all die, and our children will be dead. Our grandchildren will all be dead. The waste will still be radioactive and incredibly dangerous to get near. So you have to have signage that can be understood by people hundreds or thousands of years later. They might not be speaking English or any kind of language that exists on Earth today. So you have to come up with like universal language that can tell people, stay away. This is bad. And I had this idea of like, well, in the future, I envision someone approaching this and not knowing what to do with it, right? And that kind of morphed into this idea. Well, like, I had that, and that's, and I get these things all the time where I just write it down. I'm like, okay, figure approaches waste dump, doesn't know what it is. And I write that down, and I'm like, well, that's not a novel, right? Novels are long. They have to tell complicated stories with nuanced characters. That's an interesting, like, picture, but it's not a story. And so I'll write that down, and then sometimes along the way, I'll pick up other things. I'd be like, well, and Burial has this element of magical realism to it, where, and this isn't a spoiler because it happens in the first chapter. The main character, she's seeking revenge to a man that she's already killed. He's already dead. Like, the true revenge is burying him in this radioactive hellscape, because there's this religion or superstition or myth that has come up in these intervening years since the apocalypse, where that's how you send them to the worst parts of hell. You bury them out in the worst place, and they'll go to the worst hell. And she's talking to him, and he's talking back, and you're like, well, wait, he's dead. How is he talking? And is this real? Is he actually talking to her, or is she gone a little crazy in her grief? And I don't really say it. I don't really tell you. You have to figure that out on your own. But I love magical realism, and I love that idea of leaving things completely unknown. It's for the reader to decide. And I think I had that kind of idea of this woman having gotten revenge on this man, killed him, and now it's talking to him like it's a Western. I think part of that was mechanical as well. Like, you have a lone wanderer for a while, it's going to get boring, right? You need some, like, that's why buddy comedies work. Buddy, buddy, you have two people. You have the straight man, and then you have the wild card, the chaos, the character that stirs the pot a little bit. And like, mechanically, I was just like, well, I need to give her someone to talk to, because it'll make it more interesting. Like, yeah, she could talk to her horse, but I'm not going to do that for an entire book. Well, why? Wait a minute. If she is going to take this guy to bury him, why can't she talk to him? And then that immediately, and like, sometimes the best ideas, the things that interest you the most, are actually sparked out of necessity. Like, I need to make this story interesting. I need to give her someone to talk to. Well, why isn't she just talking to this dead man who's not dead? Or maybe not, isn't, or maybe he is dead. You don't know. And I think it's all these disparate things all kind of sandwiched together. And then when that kind of became concrete in my mind, spinning all the way back around, I had to write this story. Like, it doesn't really, like I always tell people, it doesn't really fit on the table. Y'all came up to me at my table, and you're like, you see an array of horror books, and like, I have lots of different kinds. I have like really gory, intense, violent stuff. I have psychological stuff. I have stuff in between. But this is not quite there. It's dark for sure, but it's not a horror story. But I loved it so much, and I didn't care. I was just like, that is the joy, right, of being able to self-publish is that I decide what I want to do. And I don't know, I think to John Carpenter, I just saw that picture y'all had with John Carpenter, and he's my favorite director because he did, everyone knows The Thing, everyone knows Big Trouble in Little China, very different movies from each other, but then you bring up things like Christine or Starman, They Live, even very different thing, very different kinds of stories. And even John Carpenter himself said he always really wanted to direct a Western and never really got a chance. And I think it's just, that's what Burial came from. I love Burial. People always ask me what my favorite books are, and I always tell them Underneath or Death Rattle. Burial's right there with it, but also most people will come to my table want a horror story.
I think personally that's why I kind of fell in love with Burial, because you may not know, but I grew up with like The Rifleman, because after school you'd come home, there'd be reruns of The Rifleman, or you can watch like The Magic School Bus, and then after that was over, I'd be like, oh cool, Rifleman, cowboys. And I don't know, I really vibe with that. So thank you for writing a Western. The Western genre does not get enough love, and it's nice to see it portrayed in like with horror elements to it. Of course, you got the wasteland and you got all that fun concepts, if you will. So it's nice to see not just a gunslinger Western cowboy bandit kind of thing, but more like very well fleshed out story. So I appreciated that, definitely.
And I love that you say, Robbie, that you had to write it. Is that why you write? Because these things just come to you, and to get them off your back, so to say, you have to flesh it out and get it out there.
I mean, yeah, that's the people ask, like, why did you become I have to, like, why do you write? I'm like, I have to do it. There's not, I am compelled. Like, it's a mental illness. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, it is, I have to do it. If I wasn't publishing the stuff, I would still be writing things. Like, when I say I've been writing my whole life, I have been. It's not, certainly haven't been writing like the only difference is like, oh, I finish books now. I finish writing a novel and then I publish it. And there's like a business side to it, when before there wasn't much of a business side to things. Like, I would maybe share writing on different topics. I've had blogs over the years, as soon as blogs became a thing, as I became an adult. But I would be writing anyway. I'm just kind of, it's become part of the business side of it is a part of it, when before it wasn't. But even now, like, the next manuscript I'm going to be working on is not a horror thing. It's another thing I have to write. I'm putting time aside because I need to do it.
And what medium do you prefer to write on? Do you type everything up with a computer? Do you handwrite it? What do you prefer to use?
Oh yeah, I type. I have to. My brain works too fast for my handwriting. I'm slow with my just normal handwriting. Like, it does in a pinch. Obviously, sometimes you don't have a laptop, or I'm not at home, so I can't write on my computer. So I will bring a notepad and a journal. And for like brainstorming and mind mapping and rough outlines, character stuff, early on in the process, sometimes I use pen and paper, because then I can kind of just do scratch work all over. It's a mess, and then I can organize it later on a computer. But for the heavy duty writing, I'm always using either my PC or my laptop, because my brain is too fast, my hands are too slow. I end up leaving words out. Like, if I write I use pen and paper, I go back and look, I'm like, I left out 4 words in that sentence. Why did I? Oh, because my hand jumped. I just skipped things because my brain was firing too fast.
Do you have like a ritual that you do once you finish a book?
Oh man. Not really. I try, like, I just finished a manuscript last week. And it's a thing where you've listed all my books I've published. There's 14 of them. I have 2 more reader magnets, which are exclusive to my newsletter, which is, I'll plug that, robbiedorman.com/newsletter. You can sign up for free. You get 2 free books. And those are real books. They're good books. I give them out for free so people subscribe to my newsletter. And so that's 16 books right there I published technically. And there's a bunch more that I've written that I haven't published yet. I'm not going to publish because they're not very good. Or like it's a lot. I've written over 1 million words in the past 5 years. And it's very easy for me to just put it like, oh, I finished it. Yeah. And then just put it in the drawer, so to speak. And then move on, go to the next project. Like, I'm a workaholic. That's why I have so many books. But I try, and I literally did this last week where I put a post up on my Instagram. I'm like, I'm very bad at this. I should stop and celebrate these small victories. Like every time I publish a book, every time I finish a manuscript, every time I do any of these things, I should stop for a moment, take a stock, and realize this is like an achievement. Just one. And people are like, wow, these are all yours when they come up to me at a con. And I go, yeah, they are. And when you have that many, any individual book feels, even though each one is an achievement and is an incredible amount of work on my part, because there's so many of them, it pulls a trick on my own brain where it's just one book. And you're like, well, no, it's not just one book. That one book is months and months and months of work, and more months of marketing and making TikToks about it and yelling at people like y'all when you come up to my table and I'm like, hey, buy my books. I try and I try. This is me saying I try, and every time I finish something, I sit and I'll reward myself all with a video game. I think I bought Alan Wake 2 because I finished a manuscript and I was a good boy, so I got a treat. I think literally I took my dog for a very long walk after at the nighttime, just to peace and quiet, and just kind of think about it for a little bit and just kind of enjoy the quiet and I'm, again, because I'm a workaholic, I'm constantly me sitting still and not working on something is very hard. So I try, and lately the ritual is just sit and be still and quiet, be present in it, right? And be present and not working, which is a problem because I literally wasn't supposed to work today because of Thanksgiving and I still did. So I'm bad at it.
Well, thank you
About
so
how
much
many
for being
pages
here.
do you end up cranking out a day usually?
How many pages?
How many pages? Yeah.
Oh, I don't really count it as pages. I count words, because pages change on how you format stuff. Yeah. But words it depends on the day. I will do, on a normal day, I would say I aim for 2 chapters roughly for me, which is roughly 4,000 words, but it can vary anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 words. On a slow day, it could be no words. Some days are also, now as I talk about the business side of things, there are days where there is no words done, even though I am working all day. It's like making TikToks, which is work. Designing a website to sell my signed copies of my books, creating marketing campaigns and looking how they're doing and doing A/B testing on an ad on Facebook to see how well it sells a book and if is it worth it and all that stuff. I hate all that stuff because it's not writing and it doesn't feel like as much work as writing does to me, because I'm an author, I'm a writer, that's work. But actually the business side of things, going to a con for 3 days and selling and standing at a table and hand selling my books to people is also part of the job. It's also work. No chapters get done on those days either, but that's why I try and do, a 5,000 word day or even a 10,000 word day. Luna has Killer Hockey Mascot right next to her. That book I wrote in a week. That's 55,000 words in a week.
Yeah.
So that's 12,000 words a day, 11,000 words a day, which is too many. Don't do that. That was a bad idea, even though I love that book. But that was me going like, I need to finish something quick. And I just pumped it out, even though that's the other thing. Like, that's the other thing you realize after you come back to a book after a year, it doesn't change at least me writing. You can't tell the difference how long it's something it took me to write. Some books take me months to write. The book that took me a week reads the same to me. So I don't know.
That's pretty true. And I was going to say, thank you. I know it's Thanksgiving week, so thank you for being here. And I know you write a lot, so thanks for
this is
coming
like
by.
this is more fun than work. I don't like, yeah, this is work, but this is more the fun part of it. I will do. It's like, yeah, how could people ask me, be like, hey, you want to be on my show? I'm like, hell yeah, I want to be on your show. This is awesome. This is great.
Free publicity, yay!
I mean, also it's like, it's fun. It's like, this is like show business. This is the best. Like, everyone complains about, oh, there's too much stuff going, too many shows, too much. I'm like, this is awesome. We're in the first week. This is literally impossible for like the last 5 years. You can't have your own talk show. Now you can. Now anybody can. It's awesome. I I I don't know why people get upset about it. Like, it's great. This is incredible.
Yeah, maybe they can have a talk show about how much they hate talk shows.
I mean, it
Nice.
probably exists. There probably is one. Unfortunately, bunch of haters.
It's cheaper than therapy.
That's damn true.
I just wish my therapy could get me books like Robbie's just cranking them out, man.
I mean, it is, and it's also part of the business. Like, I don't know. I think I'm particularly suited to write a lot of books. My own. Like, I saw another author on TikTok talk about this, where and like, it's a way to frame it. You mentioned therapy. It's like, I think just the way my particular set of mental illnesses make it easier for me to write a lot of books. I also prefer like short. I like short, punchy horror books. Things, early Stephen King or Dean Koontz, when they wrote short, not like this, Carrie, The Shining, even before The Stand, where and It, which are both incredibly long. And nowadays it feels like every other book King writes is incredibly long. And I like short things. I like to, that's what I like to read. So it's what I end up writing. But that is when you look up a lot of pedantic business things about self-publishing, they say you should publish a lot. It keeps you fresh on people's minds, when you constantly have new releases coming out. And I just happen, the way I write, like, there's a lot of people who can't write like I do because they don't write 60,000, 70,000 word horror stories. They write 300,000 word fantasy epics. And you can't write those in a month or two, which I usually do. Write my novels in a month or two. So it just happens to be the genre I write in, and I prefer to write in. The style of book I prefer just happens to be something I can write a lot. And also, like, my mental illnesses, my obsessions and anxieties just say, keep going, keep writing, produce. Not necessarily a healthy thing, but it is a thing that helps me get a lot of books out.
Well, we definitely appreciate all the amazing work that you've cranked out. What percentage is publishing cost for you, and what percentage of the book is just straight profit for you, just on average?
Oh man, that's a hard question. That's a good one though. I've never heard that one before. It varies. I think that's actually, it's kind of a problem. The problem with that answer is that it varies from book to book. Certain costs, I think, are built into a book. My time, obviously, but also the cost of a cover, a good cover. I believe in a good cover. covers that, and I covers that I really like, and that's expensive. There are people who either design their own covers, which is mostly free if they have good design skills, and with a subscription to like Canva or another stock image website. There's a lot of them, but if you're not, I am not artistically skilled with visual arts, so I do hire an artist to do my covers, and she's very good. But there's a cost, and I mean she charges a reasonable fee for how good she is, but that's built in. But there's also like variable marketing costs, and a lot of marketing it ends up paying for itself, which is the idea, right? You make the money to pay for the marketing plus more, and then you add up over time, paying off whatever the and there's a lot of invisible numbers there as well, which can't be seen, and I don't even honestly know, because with the way the internet works, the way the internet storefronts work, especially if you buy one of my books, you're going to get recommended my other books. And that is another reason I publish a lot, is if you buy underneath, let's say, which is my bestseller by far, and you like it, you'll get served, you'll see on Amazon, you'll see my other books pop up and you're recommended once in a while, and you go, maybe I want to read another book from Robbie because I liked underneath. And so you'll end up buying another book or 2 books or whatever. And if you really like me, you'll buy them all. Not to say that most people do, but I think there are people who do buy all my books. How do you quantify that? Like let's say I put an ad out for underneath and I don't make all my money back on it. I spent $100 on an ad and I only sell $75 worth of books. But 6 months later, one of those people who bought that book ends up buying all my books. They just spent well over $100 on all my books. I don't know that's the same person, though. I don't know that it's the person who bought a book because of that ad that didn't quite make its money back, that I canceled because of that fact. But it ended up actually making me more money than I thought it would. There's a lot of times where I don't see the return on things for a long time. There's a long tail on a lot of these things. And it's a long game, being a self-published author. You have to be in it for the long haul. You have to understand that you're not necessarily, every book I publish, I'm going to be at a loss on that book for a while. Like, it helps now that we're, a large part of my early career was during the pandemic. So nothing was happening. There were no cons to sell books at. And it's also very hard to network with people and other authors and folks like y'all who are doing shows about horror and things like that. So I'm kind of I was like in a little bubble, just publishing books and hoping people would read them. I'm like, I'm not making any money on this stuff because I can't go to a con and hand sell things. And also because I only had 3 or 4, 5 books out, you're not going to see the return on these books, because sometimes the return is, they bought a book and now they're going to buy my other books. It's a volume business. This is not the sexy part of being a horror author talk, but it is a thing I live with, where you have to kind of do some invisible math and mental math and go like, and also a lot of it's like, you have to kind of believe in the book you're publishing. You have to go, no, I know this is really good. I really like it. I really like my cover. I think it's a strong pitch. I think if someone reads this, they're going to want to read my other stuff, or at least remember me. And that is sometimes like the invisible math I'm doing. And I think it's paying off at this point. I'm 5 years into this career, and it is now I'm starting to see more and more of those returns, when before it was kind of just not there. And it's patience, which is hard for me as well. I'm not a very patient person. But it is about like, well, I published underneath. That was my 3rd book. That was in the winter of 2019. And it still is paying dividends to me to this day. It is still the book people go, I had a guy come up to me at Spooky Empire last May and said he's like, I recognize that book. I recognize underneath. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. That's really cool. He's like, I want to buy all your books. I'm like, okay. I mean, like, yeah, great, awesome, thanks. But it's like he found that book online on Kindle probably years ago, and because he loved it, because he liked it, and he recognized it, he went, oh no, I know this guy. I really like it. I'm gonna buy all your books now. But that's years, right? Years of not seeing. It's all of that is invisible. I don't know. I didn't know that man until that day, until he came up to me and said hello. So it's like there are some parts of it where I can easily quantify, like, oh, I spent this much money. I sold this many copies of the book this year. So I made money on it. But sometimes you sell a book and at a loss, let's say, or you give away a book, which is oftentimes, you have giveaways. And then later on, someone goes, oh, I got your book through this giveaway, but man, I really liked it. I want to buy more of your books. So you go, oh, that's awesome. It was worth it. But you don't know that for many, many, many years, usually. Sometimes it might not even be like, again, the tail. Like it could be 10 years from now, and people could still be reading underneath and going, oh, I really like that. Oh, I know you. What's your newest book? Let me buy it. Something like that.
What you're saying?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say what you're saying really makes sense, because when I met you at Phantasm, I was kind of tapped out on funds. I would love to have put all my money down on all your stuff, but I was like, yeah, I don't have that much money anymore, so I'm just going to kind of follow you on Instagram, follow you on the social medias and see kind of what you're doing. And then I was like, you know what? Next convention I see him at, I'm going to get Burial. And then it finally happened. So somebody might run into you and may want to buy the book, but they're like, we'll save it for next book or something like that. You know what I mean? For next time, because I don't have the funds, etc. So maybe, you know what I mean? So maybe they'll invest in it later, or they might invest a little bit now and then later on, like, I'm really liking Burial. So next one, I probably want to do either Dead End. So I don't know. See, it kind of works that way, right?
Yeah, and it is a measure of patience, and also you have to. It's a thing that a lot of writers and authors have trouble with, is that self-confidence, and we are riddled with imposter syndrome, and like, do I actually belong here? What am I doing? Like, even no matter who you are, if you're self-published or traditionally published through a big publisher, or through even an indie press or wherever, many authors have that struggle with, like, do I belong? Am I good? Things like that. And you have to have a degree of, like, no, my books are good. Is everyone going to like them? Of course not. That's not. There's nothing that everyone likes, and that's good. Even you don't want something that everyone likes, because that you're probably too broad. If you're looking for everyone to like your thing, it's impossible unless you write something incredibly broad. And with that becomes like lack of, I don't know. I personally find rough edges sometimes more charming than not, because, like, John Carpenter, for example, I mentioned him again. His movies are not smooth and easy. They're weird and strange, but all very different. And I really value that in my books. And you have to believe. You have to have that almost stupid level of belief in yourself that what you're doing is the right thing, and that people will find you. And it's also a measure of just like, yeah, there's going to be like, books are not necessarily, not most, for most people, books are going to be one of the things that they're going to not, when times are tough, when they are short on money, which is like basically all the time for everyone now. They're going to be one of the things people are going to go look at the margins and go, oh, I can either buy lunch today or I can buy a book. I need lunch. And I go, yeah, I don't want people to go hungry to buy a book. That's ridiculous. And you have to be like, I don't know, I hand out my bookmarks are my business cards, and I hand out bookmarks to people, and they're oftentimes like, I don't have the money, or, oh yeah, thank you. And then they'll walk away without, yeah, exactly. There's one right there. And I I you have to be like, oh, well, maybe they'll look me up later, and that's okay. You can't. Every interaction does not need to end with you buying a book from me, which is another a thing that I think some people struggle with at cons, both in general, like any table you go to, any kind of convention, there's going to be certain people who are like upset if you stop by and not buy anything. And then there's also, I think it's a thing authors struggle with a lot, where they don't know how to interact with people beyond buy my book or I don't like you. And like, that's not healthy. It's a bad that you're gonna be unhappy all day. That's not good. Don't do that.
Not only that, but if I feel like somebody's like, I don't like you if you don't buy my stuff, I'll be like, well, fine then. Fuck you. I'm never gonna read your shit if you have that shitty attitude towards
No,
me.
no, you
You
just be
know?
nice. You be nice. It's just not hard. Just be nice to people. Just be nice. That's it.
I love that you have that ability, Robbie, to just go with the flow and
I mean, I
even though
try.
I can tell you're a Radiohead fan, do I really belong here?
Right,
I'm a
right, right.
weirdo, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But you still have the ability to interact with people who are like-minded and are gonna really appreciate your work.
I do my best. There's always times when, at the end of a day, when I've been standing all day at something like Spooky Empire or Spookala, here in Central Florida, I'm gonna be tired and kind of everyone when, and I think that's the thing you have to keep in mind. Not not to bring up therapy again, but you have to like, what's my state of mind right now? Why do I feel grumpy? Oh, it's because I'm hungry or because I'm tired. Like, it's just general basic stuff. Like, you have to remember everyone's human. You have to extend grace to everyone. Here, that's my therapy session for today. Here's my TED Talk.
Love it. And Luna and I have experienced, what you were talking about with the long payoff. We don't always know who we talk to, if, they're gonna follow us or watch any of our shows, or, who they referred to us and things like that. We don't always see the repercussions, like the waves sort of coming and building, but we just have to have faith and know that we're doing what we enjoy and what we love. And if people enjoy it as well, great. If not, well, if they have a right to not like us, then don't watch us. It's just that simple.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, playing along that with Kathy said. So pretty much we talked to Edward earlier, who was in the Quantum Devil, and then he was like, "Yeah, I've watched you guys for a while now, and I was really excited that you guys asked me to be on your show. I was actually waiting for you guys to ask me to be on the show, and I was so like, I love you guys, and I'm so excited to be on your show." And I was like, "Really? You love us? Like, really? But you're the awesome actor from London, like."
It's a really, I mean, those are reminders, right? That reminds you, those are the things I personally like, whenever you're doing something creative and it takes a long time, it, like, now more than ever, it takes so long to establish a fan base and to have people, to find your true fans, as they say. And those moments are the things you try and, whenever you're struggling or when you're like questioning, like, why am I put, all of these, it's so much work and a lot of work that no one ever sees, and you're just by yourself kind of toiling. And it's those moments where you're like, oh, why am I doing this? And then you have to remember, like, oh, well, no, my fans are out there, and there are people that really do appreciate the work that I do. And those moments are the things that you have to kind of remember and focus on, and not all the kind of the dreary, dumb, dull stuff. The things that remind you why you do the thing that you love.
Exactly. And we just had a fan show with our first fan Juan yesterday, and we're so happy, and just that we inspired him to want to start his own podcast. Just those little things is really all that matters. If we can just help one person, make one person's day a little better, it makes it all worth it in the end.
Exactly.
Speaking of Juan, he is in the house. He said hi. So thank you for watching.
Hi, Juan.
Yes, it was so much fun. And then what I'm really here for is like instances like That's So Random podcast, right? We went on his show and then we asked him to be on our show. He's like, yeah, sure. He's like, you know what? I never get to review stuff that I want to review. So why don't we do this? And then I was like, yeah, that's a great idea. So he pitched us an idea and then we're going to, collaborate on it later next month, I believe. Either later this month or next month. I got to focus on the calendar. But anywho, yeah, so it's like kind of, making friends as you like make these fun, insightful episodes. I think that's what's really been kind of fun for me. I don't know, like, hey, I was at your show. Now you're gonna be on my show, and I don't know.
So, Robbie, how do you, when you get a book published, do you get a certain amount printed, or do you kind of print as you go?
Yeah, everything's because I'm self-published. Everything's print on demand, and it's relatively. I mean, people complain about it a lot. Authors in my circles complain about the different printers a lot, and it's not terrible, honestly. It could be a lot worse. Maybe I've just been very lucky. I haven't seen a lot of big problems, but it's relatively quick turnaround. Or maybe it's just because I'm printing enough that I get preferential treatment. I don't know. But I like, again, this is another business thing where it's like like inventory control and things like that, where like makes me think of back when I worked for my dad and we had to do inventory at his construction company, and like, how many aluminum beams do we have of this size? And you're like, oh, this is boring. But it's very much like, well, I have certain books sell better, and there's con season, right? And like we just left October, and I literally I did appearances 7 out of 8 weekends in a row, which is too many. That was really, really rough on me. But it's October, right? It's Halloween, September, October, leading up to Halloween. Everyone's in the mood. Even, there's horror fans who are always kind of in the mood. They're always there. And then there's people who are like, no, it's spooky season. I want to read something scary this month. And so I want to be there, and capitalize on it. And so I did a lot of shows, and I have some shows upcoming in December, and then it's doing a show in Atlanta in January. And whenever I'm doing those shows, I always try and again, it's like, I don't really know how well I'm going to do. Sometimes there's shows where I like, oh, I'm going to do, seems like a big show. I'm going to do great. And then you don't do so great. Or no one shows up, usually is the problem. It's like, if there's enough people at a show, I will do well. Like, I have learned that. I think I have established pretty good presence with both my books. If there are enough readers at a show, I will sell books to them. But when there's no one at a show, I can't sell books. But I order up. You got to get big orders coming in, so I'll order a bunch of books all at once. I try and keep a lot of things in stock. Right now, underneath, when I get here's just to give you a very easy example. When I get under 10 copies left of underneath, I order 40 more, which is a lot. That's the most, because underneath my bestseller. But other books I'll order 30 or 20 depending on how well I typically sell them at a con. There's also like regional things where, like, I was living in Texas and I have a book set in Texas, Death Rattle. That book sold really well in Texas because it's in Texas. I have a book also that's set in Florida, What Dwells Beneath the Waves. It's my Florida book. And now that I'm in Florida, it sells really well because people in Florida want to read books that's set in Florida. That's fun because you're like, oh, I know this place. I've been to the Keys. I know where that is. So I have to order up. Now I order less of Death Rattle and more of What Delves Beneath the Nays because people are in Florida. I'm selling books largely to people in Florida at cons. So it's that things like that.
Nice. Yeah, what's relatable? It makes sense. And thank you for keeping all your books at the same size. Nothing annoys me more than when I'm lining up my bookshelf and trying to make things nice and organized. And I got the same author with 3 different sized books. Why? Why are you doing this to me? Why do you hate me?
I mean, I'll play devil's advocate and say sometimes authors don't have a say in it. There's like, if you're self-published, you do have I decide the size of my books, so I make them all the same size. We might see a change in that next year. I might for the first time publish a hardcover, but I probably will also still publish the soft cover, the solo mass market paperback size books because I am so fond of the little pocket books. I love them. It's the size book I grew up on. That's what I read when I was a kid, and we went to used bookstores and bought books for 50 cents. My mom would let me buy, a bunch of books because they're a quarter or 50 cents each. It's not like we had a lot of money, but we're at a used bookstores, and I bought a bunch of books with monsters on the cover for a quarter each. And now I write books that have monsters on the cover, and I want that size. It feels so right to me. So, I mean, some authors, they don't get to choose. The publisher went, no, it looks better when it's bigger. Our market research says that books that are this size will sell 8% better if they're versus the books that are this other size, or hardcovers aren't selling as well anymore. So we're not going to do them. Whatever, dumb business things. I also I talked about establishing an identity. That's also part of it. Like, I like that size, so I'm gonna have all my books. Like, I honestly, I mean, there's a bookshelf right here off camera. I have all my books lined up exactly exactly the same way. So I like looking at them, and they're like, oh, it's all my books. I can see them.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say, and I know this is a weird person thing, but like your books, I don't know why, but the covers are really like velvety soft. I just love touching them. I'm like, oh, I don't know.
That matters. I mean, it's not. I
Yeah.
just choose. It's the way that the matte finish books are printed with my printer. Like, I didn't choose a special option for that. That's just the way they came. But I do like them as well. I like, and they people like. You're not the only one. You say it's weird. Like, I have multiple people come up to my table every single con. And I'm like, I encourage people to touch books. I feel like you should be able to look them up, flip through them, and I get people probably half dozen every show where someone goes, look at the book. Oh, that feels nice. I like that. I mean, I don't mind it. It helps sell a book. It's like tactile people. And it's also, hey,
Yes.
you're going to be touching this thing. This is when you're buying a physical object, it matters. I don't it's not crazy. It does matter. Like, how it feels, how it looks. Like, it's an important part of it.
Yeah. If the book felt like sandpaper, it'd be like, maybe I don't want to touch it as much.
You can still file your nails with it, right?
Yeah.
I know you're friends and family. Yay!
Look, guys, I have the sandpaper version.
So, what were some of your favorite authors, Robbie, growing up? And if so, with all the writing you do you still read? And if so, what do you read?
Oh, I mean, I mentioned Stephen King and Dean Koontz. They're like, obviously those are the heavy hitters, and everyone will mention them. But I still, I still love them. I still have a lot of. They're not my. I mean, I don't know. When people ask me who my favorite writer is or things like that, it's very hard for me to pick one person because I'm a product of reading hundreds and hundreds of different books. But I will always say early Stephen King and Dean Koontz, especially the Bachman books, like Long Walk, Running Man, Those are my favorite Stephen King books. Are those? Clive Barker. If we're going back in the day, those guys like, or even all the heavy hitters, Anne Rice. The people everyone knows. I also love Michael Crichton. I like John Grisham. I like those populist, easily consumable books, like, because they're easy to read and they're fast reads. Nowadays, yeah, I still read King. I don't read Kuntz anymore. I think he's kind of gone off the deep end a little bit, but I still read King, whenever he's not when he writes a horror book. Like, a lot of times lately, it seems he's publishing like crime books or things like that. I'm like, that doesn't interest me as much. And like, I would read everything if I had all the time in the world, but I don't. Like everyone else, we're all very, very busy. And I don't have all the I can't. I have like, and like a lot of people come to my table, like, I have my TBR pile is so high. I have so many books to read. I'm like, I'm right there with you. Like, right back here, there's a giant stack of books, and there's another giant stack of books out in the living room. Like, I just have a bunch of books that I haven't read that I want to, but largely now, like, it's split between a million different things. Like, I try and read as much horror as I possibly can because I kind of need to for my job. I still love it. I still enjoy it, but it's also like, you're supposed to be reading what is out there. Be aware of what the general like publishing world is like for your genre, just for business reasons. I still love the books that are good. I also read literature, like, literary stuff that, books where not much happens, but it reads real pretty, things like that. But I think my favorite things now, the ones I recommend to people largely, are things that are really weird and books that I would never write because I simply don't have the perspective. Like, either like it's from a perspective person, a person who grew up in a completely different situation than me, so someone who's came from a different culture entirely, or people who just are fucking crazy, people who you think might be crazy, and they write books. Like, there's literally a book I talk when people are like, oh, I won't, you're reading weird stuff, give me something. I'm like, I read a book called Excrement Mountain. And it's literally like, it is, I don't know how else to describe it. It's about it's set in LA. It's about like a film crew filming a movie on literally a mountain of shit. There's no other way to describe the book. But the shit also makes you hallucinate and go crazy. So the entire time it's just, I mean, it is insane. It is absolutely insane book. But I would never write something like that. It's very different from my stories. Are very much like, they're page turners. They tell stories, right? They're not going to be just weird stuff thrown at your face. So
literally
weird shit. I mean, it is gross. If you go out there and search to read Excrement Mountain, I want to give you all the warnings in the world. It is disgusting, but it is really compelling in me because it's so strange and off-putting that I kind of like it. Let's see, House of X's by Sarah Rose Etter. That's another book I would throw out there. I'm about to read Nestlings by, what is her name? Another author. I can't remember it. I just had it in front of me, but if you search Nestlings, you'll find that book. But it's a weird bug horror book. It's really gross as far as I know.
I hate bugs.
So do I. But that's sometimes that's why I read horror in general, is because I want to like poke those raw nerves. I want to like feel like, oh, that's awful. Things like that. That's like, it's things like that. That's what I really love the most right now. Like, those are the things that really excite me, is when I find something that's really weird, or again, like a very different perspective culturally, or like, it's a lot of women authors who are like, because they grew up as women, it's not a perspective I'll ever have. It's impossible for me to share it. So it's something new and exciting, or different ethnicities, different cultures, where like it's so different from what I grew up in. I grew up in a very, I don't know, my parents were hippies, very kind of hippie white
Same.
people. And that's that's my perspective on the world. And certainly I try and consume as much art as possible that really broadens my perspective, but I'm still captured by that perspective. And I'm not going to be able to necessarily like understand what it was growing up as a Mexican teenage girl in, I think, what was the book? It was in LA. What is it? What was the name of the book? But it's a possession story. I'm trying to remember the title of it, but it's like, I didn't grow up in LA. I'm not a teenage Mexican girl. Like, I'm never gonna have that perspective. And it is so exciting when I read books like that. That's so exciting to me because it's so different than me, and that's what I'm looking for. Like, I don't want me again. I'm me all the time. That's boring as hell.
Yeah, that's very true. I'd like to read that story about the Mexican teenage girl in
I'll
Los
find it.
Angeles.
I will find it for you. I promise. I have it on my bookshelf somewhere.
I am
I'll
a
get it.
Mexican teenage, and I was a teenager. I'm no longer a teenager. Ugh.
But it is like, it's very much like, oh wow, this is such a different perspective. And
Mhm.
sure, it's a horror story, but it's also just about that one, like that. Or sometimes the joy is in finding shared experiences in someone whose perspective is so much different from me, either culturally or geographically or whatever the difference is. I still go, oh well, I still feel like that sometimes, even though we are so different. The character is so different from me. I still can understand. Like House of X, I mentioned that is like, there's a lot of weird body dysmorphia stuff in that. It's about a girl who is born with her body twisted like 90 degrees. And you kind of, as you read, you're like, is it really twisted or is this all in her head? And it becomes that aspect of like, oh, she sees her body as different than what it actually is. And and like the rest of the book's really strange as well. Her parents work in meat caves. They harvest meat and sell it. Things like, it's weird. Again, I love weird shit. Like, it just that's what I want. I want strange things. And or Night Bitch, that's relatively recent, about a mother who thinks she's becoming a dog.
Whoa.
It's
That's
really good.
really weird.
It's a great story, a great novel. I absolutely recommend it. It's on a lot of best-of lists, so it doesn't really need doesn't mean my endorsement very much, but that is another one like fresh on my mind. It's called Night Bitch, and it's literally about this. She's a new mother, and she thinks she's becoming a dog.
Weird. So, speaking of awesome people, Ezekiel just shouted us out and said, "Hey, folks, really enjoying the interview."
Hey, Ezekiel.
Hi. Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. I do have. He also. Oh, that sounds interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah.
Whenever you find that Mexican girl story that gets possessed, let me know. Let me know. And I do have
And Robbie, maybe a way you can celebrate for when you write a new book, finish writing a new book, is you could read an off-genre book. Like
That's
read
true.
a book that has nothing to do with
As a treat.
horror.
As
Yeah.
a treat. Yeah.
I found the book. It's called wait. Is this it? No, this isn't it. Never mind. I'm sorry. I thought I found it.
It's
sorry.
okay. I wanted to ask you. I know that Burial was your, non-horror with some horror elements. Do you plan on doing like a fantasy book in the future?
I've been posting this on my social media a little bit. I'm writing something that is it's Clive Barker. I mentioned Clive Barker, and he wrote, both. He wrote horror and he wrote fantasy. And he wrote horror fantasy, and I think the next thing, I'm not sure when I'm gonna be publishing it. Probably maybe end of next year, early 2025. Because I typically work like a year-ish in advance of my manuscripts, but it's going to be a fantasy horror story, dark, probably not quite dark fantasy, it's a little darker than dark fantasy, so I think it's going to be a horror fantasy, but it is absolutely, it's set in the Fey realm, the Fey lands, basically. So it will be absolutely exploring. It's really dark and it's really gross, honestly. Like I wrote some scenes in that are awful, like things that I was like,
Repulsive.
as I was writing, like, oh my god, this is too much, but I still did it because, of course. But it's also like it has a lot of fantasy world building and a lot of, it explores, like it has a lot of Clive Barker in it. I think I really leaned into like his, not like, it felt, I very much wanted to write something. I don't know if have y'all seen The Cell with Jennifer Lopez and Vince Vaughn?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. The dream world that they go into, I was really channeling the visuals of that, of like the inside
Nice.
of Vincent D'Onofrio's mind. I was channeling those visuals plus Hellraiser, kind of mired with, like, even speaking of other non-horror influences, like, I don't know if y'all had ever read Brian Jacques books, children's fantasy books with animal folk.
No.
Like Redwall. Martin the Warrior is probably the most famous one. They're really fun they're good, really good kids books, but it's basically just like fantasy books, but all the characters are animals. So you have, so like Martin the Warrior, Martin is a mouse. And he's and they're set in like this around, they're all set in the same universe around this abbey in like a medieval-ish time period. And they're really, the other thing about them is they're very detailed about the food, and like they talk a lot about like baked goods, and it's like, oh man, that sounds really delicious. But I really wanted to meld of the very like this very disparate things of like, oh, I want The Cell and Hellraiser and Clive Barker darkness and weird visuals and gruesome blood and stuff and torture with this kind of cutesy animal, things like Pan's Labyrinth, even like when you think of like that kind of dark fantasy, Guillermo del Toro's thing where he, will bring in like, fairy and fae and monsters, but give them, I don't know, some innocence. And then because the fact there's some innocence present, it makes the disturbing stuff feel more disturbing because there is that kind of, the marriage of the two ideas makes them both stand out more because they're so different from each other. The working title for it is "I Fae What You Did Last Summer," because it starts.
Nice.
It starts with a car accident. Like I know what you did last summer starts with a car accident that they're trying to cover up, and it starts the same way with the protagonist kills a Fae prince with his truck in the middle of the night, he's intruded onto our world, and it's a complete accident. He's tired. He's driving home from work, and he accidentally kills one of his truck and buries him out in the woods. And then he is summoned to the Fey realms, ignores the pleas, and so his son gets kidnapped, taken by the king out in the Fey world. So he has to go get his son back. That is, but it's not easy. Obviously, it's not simple. He has to go through hell to get there. But it is absolute. I've never, any of my books have, even Burial is probably the closest to having any kind of fantasy influences, and it's very minor. I would say it's like a little bit, but
yeah,
this is heavy. This is a lot, and it's a lot of fun. It's real. This is why I do a lot of different subgenres of horror, is because I get kind of bored just doing the same thing over and over again. So I just wanted, like, it's fun. Like, I dip my toes in a little bit of fantasy. I would never write a proper fantasy novel. I don't think I could. Like, I tell people this, like, I've thought about writing a horror, like a fantasy novel. I thought about writing just a science fiction novel. I thought about writing a romance novel even, but inevitably they just turn into like horror stories again. I can't.
That's awesome.
It's hard. They kind of just drift back,
You don't want to stray from what you love.
I think it just speaks to who I am. I can't help it.
Yeah.
Have you ever had anyone, speaking of films, has anyone optioned you to turn any of your books into a screenplay or film?
No, they have not. Not that I'm against it. Hey, man, if you want to pay me money, it's like, again, I'll bring up John Carpenter again when they talk about making more Halloweens. He's like, it's always good news to me because I open out my hand and they put a check in it. And like, I think that's a very healthy attitude on his part, probably because he's been destroyed by the Hollywood system over years, and now he just wants to smoke weed and play video games, and make music with his sons, which is cool. But I would love for my books to become movies. It's one of those things where I can't control it, right? So if it happens, it happens. I think largely, if I want that to happen, my goal is basically still the same. It is just to write more books, get them out there, and grow my readership. And if enough people read my books, then probably someone will go, oh man, this would make someone higher up somewhere in some studio, or some screenwriter will go, oh man, this would make a great movie. And then let's talk to him, and then at that point I'd be like, well, I will happily sell out if the number is high enough. Like, if you want to option my book, I'll do it. If you make if I'm going to sell out, I want it to be worth it. I don't want pennies. Come on, man. I gotta pay my bills.
That's very true. Now, Ezekiel said, I want to read that when it drops, and that I love Barker. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, when about are you gonna release that Faye book?
See, that's I'm very bad at like knowing exactly. So like, for all of my talk about planning ahead, a lot of the times I get, when it's time to publish a new book, I go like, well, what do I have? What do I have done? And I do try and think about general strategy of like, well, I don't want to release two books right next to each other that are too similar to each other. Like, they can't be the same. They can't be too close. I want to do like part of my identity is my brand identity is like a lot of different kinds of horror. If it'll probably be late next year, probably, maybe early 2025, but probably it's still up in the air. I know what is next coming out, and that'll be early next year, and that's my Cursed Choose Your Own Adventure story. And then I'm going to be releasing a very strange, like, gothic horror Lovecraft thing. Those two books are definitely the next two things I'm releasing. After that, it gets a little murky. I might be releasing a Blob novel, like The Blob, that kind of thing. Or I might be doing the fantasy novel, or the problem is the fantasy novel might be a little too close to my weird gothic Lovecraft thing. I don't know. If you follow me on Instagram is actually the answer, because or subscribe to my newsletter, and I'll tell you. Believe me, as soon as I know when something's coming out, I will let you know.
Yeah. And I think we have one more last question from a viewer. He asked, question for Robbie: what has worked well for you in growing your readership?
Yeah, that's like, again, there's a million different answers for it, because it's never just one thing. You have to. I'll say it is a lot about showing up. It is about publishing. Continuing to write and publish. And I think this is advice kind of applies to anyone in any kind of artistic field. It is not just books. It is anything you're making. It is consistently make stuff that you connect to, that you're proud of, and finish it, polish it, release it, and just continue doing that, and do it as often as you can. For books in particular, it is as unfair as it is, and this is not exclusive to authors, but it is and y'all probably know this as well as I do. It is like you're expected to do everything. You're expected to, like, yeah, I write and publish books, but I also make TikToks. I also have an Instagram presence. I also have, I have a dozen, so like a bunch of social media accounts, half of which I should probably pay more attention to. Um, I have a couple podcasts of my own. I have my newsletter that goes out every month, first of the month. Subscribe to that. It's free. You get 2 free books, as I've mentioned, but I give away those books so people will subscribe to my newsletter, and they do that. Some of them just subscribe for those free books and never read it, but some people subscribe and start reading it. And as they read it every month, and I publish it every month, I've done it for now, I think 2 years in a row without missing a day, the first of every month. There are people who read it every single month, and those people are consistently loyal, and they read my books because they become not just fans of my books, but fans of me. But it is also like keeping the quality of my books up. I don't publish everything I write. I publish most of what I write because I do, as I'm writing something, I do try and have like a general quality. Like if I'm not interested in what I'm writing, if I'm not excited in it, then it's not good enough. But I generally am only going to publish something that passes a certain mark of quality in my own mind. I do have beta readers and other people that I go to feedback on my books that aren't before they get published, but largely it is like I'm the first line of defense for that. But it's consistently releasing good things that you think fulfill, I don't know, what your ideal fan wants, right? And I'm that I know I have other people in mind when I go like, well, does that fill that need? Does it meet that standard? And it's not easy. It is incredibly hard to do. I released unless you're following like authors and like Bookstagram or Book Talk real closely, this is kind of probably has gone by the wayside. You didn't notice it, but there was an author, her name, I think I'm not going to say her name because I can't remember it exactly. I don't want to say the wrong name who said it, but there was a traditionally published author who's been that way. She's been published for a very long time, like I think 30 or 40 years. Like this is pre-internet, right? She's pre-internet famous. And she said, indie publishing, self-publishing is easy. It's the easy way out. It's the easy road. And that is that very antiquated idea from people of older generations who have already made it and think that the people who are younger than them going a different direction or taking a different path is the easy way because it's not the way they went. It's not easy. It's incredibly hard. It is so much work, and this does not only apply to authors. This applies to anyone, like people like y'all, people doing trying to grow fan base of any kind of art form. It is incredibly difficult to do. We are shouldering so much work, shouldering so much burden of like doing social media all by we don't have teams of people. We have us. It's just us, and you have to grow. You have to work really hard. You have to consistently show up. You have to like I go to conventions like y'all. That's how y'all met me, and it's not a glamorous life to schlep all your stuff to a table and stand there all weekend and be like stand and smile and be nice and be presentable to someone for 3 days, 2 days, or even just a 1-day pop-up market or something. It is not the glamorous life. Stephen King doesn't do that. Stephen King just gets to sit at home and behind his really big desk and write. He doesn't have to do any appearances if he doesn't want to. If that's the easy road, that's easy staying home and petting my dog. The way to grow is to put yourself out there as much as you possibly can, make as much good and important books, in my case, as often as I possibly can, and always put my best foot forward. Like my newsletter, my social media presences, like it's in every single step. It's all like additive. It's like it's not just one thing. It's like doing this and this and this and this. And like as much as I would like to say oh, I just write good books. It's not. I just write good books and I just publish good books. I do think my books are good. I have said this a couple times. Like, I'm past the part of my there is this balance that authors are expected to have where they can't brag too much. They're not supposed to be too full of themselves and say their books are too good. But no, I think my books are good. You should read my books. I do believe that at this point. I've been doing this for years now. You should read my books. I think they're good. But that is not it is I think it is absolutely an important part of this is publishing something I'm proud of. And I am proud of everything I publish. But it's only a part of it. It is like consistently doing that and consistently being on social media. And like this, I've started a TikTok and it's like literally like, oh, did I not do a TikTok this week yet? Oh, I need to. What am I going to talk about? Things like that.
Yeah, we definitely agree. It's a lot of work. And between me and Kat, at least, it's two of us trying to do all the social media and the editing and everything. But when it's just you, it's like, ooh, good luck to him. Well, he says, thank you so much, Robbie. Well, thank you, Ezekiel.
No, thank you for the question.
Yeah, that was a great question. Well, do both of you have anything else before we let our lovely viewers go for the evening?
No, just thank you for joining us, Robbie, and I'm really enjoying your werewolf novel.
Oh, good. Excellent.
I can't wait to finish it, and then I'll see what I'm going to read next. Maybe it'll be what's behind me. Maybe I'll check that out.
Underneath's my favorite. I always say people underneath's my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a good one. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciated the conversation. You guys go support him, go subscribe. You'll get 2 free books. And what was the website again?
It's just my name, robbiedorman.com, robbiedorman.com/newsletter. It will prompt you. It will be annoying. I promise. As soon as you go to my website, it will it will ask subscribe, but you subscribe. It's once a month. You don't get spam. You get my 2 free books. You can also buy my books on my newsletter. I finally have an author shop up there on my website. Or you can just buy. I tell people you can buy my books wherever you buy your books. You can find my books. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, etc.
Okay. And then you said it was Robbie. Oh, Dorman. Yeah. Don't spell his last name wrong because you will end up You will end up on a weird website that kind of.
Oh no!
I should buy that and redirect.
Yeah, true.
I keep telling you, Luna, you need to clear your browser history.
Oh, yes. You mean this pop-up?
Yes, there it is. The annoying little pop-up. You put your email address in there, subscribe. Has links to all my stuff. I like I like that. I put so much work the past few days getting my stupid author shop working. So you can buy signed copies too, just through my website.
Ooh, a signed copy. You guys, you can get a signed copy of what we just talked about. So,
you can.
Yeah. But yeah, you can put your email here. Let me just show you guys what it would prompt. Let me just put our Delight in Fright email. Everybody knows it. And then, if you hit subscribe. Ooh.
I do have. There is an opt-in. You'll get an email. You have to.
You'll get this notification saying almost finished. We need to confirm your email address. Once that's done, then you just confirm it to make sure you give consent to all the wonderful notifications. And then you'll be in the loop about all the fabulous work we discussed today.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. And also, happy Thanksgiving if you are in the U.S. We are celebrating that. Apparently, I don't know. I'm being told it's on Thursday, so do with that information as you will. But enjoy yourselves, guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello, boils and ghouls. It's your old pal, John Kassir, the voice of the Crypt Keeper. And I want to thank you for listening to Delight and Fright with your hosts, Luna and Cat, a podcast for outcasts.